But of the dozens and dozens of new fragrances getting hyped up on TikTok every single day, which ones are actually worth your money? That's where I come in. We are going to be looking at 7 of what I think are the most hyped up fragrances on TikTok right now. I'm someone that is scrolling, consuming, and creating content about fragrances on TikTok every single day. So if there's anyone that would know what is the most hyped up right now, it's me. Let's get into this thing. Louis Vuitton fragrances on TikTok right now are absolutely exploding. And I don't know why, because a lot of the times, the most hyped up fragrances on TikTok are the least expensive. But not in this case. Particularly this one right here, Louis Vuitton's Imagination. This thing cost me an absurd amount of money, but it is honestly a beautiful fragrance. It's extremely citrus heavy, one of the most fresh and clean fragrances I have honestly ever put my nose to. But it's not just this Louis Vuitton fragrance that is getting hyped up on TikTok. It is actually clones of this Louis Vuitton fragrance that are arguably getting the most hype. The clone I've seen get the most hype of Louis Vuitton's Imagination is this one here, Game of Spades Full House. It is my most recent cologne pickup, and it is an extremely good one. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. The atomizer is one of the best I've seen. It's a heavy cap, a heavy bottle, everything about the juice as well. High quality, but there is one downside to this clone fragrance, and that is for a clone, it is abnormally expensive. I say this because Louis Vuitton's Imagination, I believe, is around 350 USD. This is 70 USD. Most clones, especially from brands like Lattafa, are under 40 US dollars. But I will say, this is just as high quality, if not high quality, than most of Lattafa, Afnan, Armaf's offerings right now. So I honestly think both of these do deserve the hype. I always say, try and get the real thing if you have the money for it. So yeah, if you have the money for it, get the real Louis Vuitton Imagination. But if you want to save a couple $100, Game of Spades Full House gets my tick of approval. Out of all the Louis Vuitton fragrances though, my favorite is still Pacific Chill, but Imagination is a solid offering. I like it a lot. I'm someone that has never considered themselves to be a watch guy, but after using PASCAL's affordable but luxurious watches, that has completely changed for me. The one that I'm wearing now is by far my favorite. It is part of their oval watch collection, and they even use real lab-grown diamonds within their watches to give it that sparkle, that elegant, that sophisticated look, but without breaking the bank. Their Overwatch collection is perfect if you are looking for a versatile but timeless piece. It would go perfectly with a fragrance like Prada L'Homme EDT. If you want something to wear for the office, mixing and matching the watch and this fragrance together would definitely pull compliments and make you feel super confident. Another favorite from PASCAL that I've been loving at the moment is their timeless classic diamond watch. This one in particular has a purple plaid dial color, which is absolutely gorgeous to me. Purple is actually my favorite color ever, so this watch and me were getting along well. Most of the PASCAL watches on their website are between the $200 and $300 price point, and honestly, for what you are getting, that is an absolute steal. Another one that I love is the Oval Royal Diamond watch. This is the most kind of fancy and blingy one that I have. Personally, it's not my style that I would wear all the time, but for when I really want to stand out, this is the one I would reach for. No matter your style or preferences when it comes to watches, PASCAL has got you covered. They are the definition of affordable luxury, and once I've started using these, I don't see myself going back to any other brand when it comes to watches. If you want to get yourself a juicy 15% off PASCAL design watches, check out the details in the description below. Risasi Hawas Black. This one didn't get as much hype as you may think. People were like, oh my gosh, it's a black bottle, it looks really cool, what does it smell like? And when everyone kind of worked out that it smelled like Creed Aventus and Creed Aventus Absolute, the hype did die down. Personally, as someone that already isn't a big fan of the Creed Aventus DNA, this fragrance is not for me. In fact, since I bought it 2 weeks ago, after seeing reviews on TikTok, I've worn it once. And what I will say about it is the performance is nuclear, especially for the price of only around 50 or 60 bucks. But other than that, I just can't justify another Creed Aventus knockoff. Like, there are just too many already out there. Like I said though, 12 hours plus longevity with very strong projection. Performance is non-issue with this fragrance. It is strong and condensed juice. I don't know what the concentration is of this thing, but like, it is oily. When you spray this on your arm, you can literally see the fragrance juice there for a good 5 minutes before it finally dries. It's that beast mode. Personally, I think if you want the Creative Enders absolute DNA without the price tag, I recommend Club de Nuit Pressure instead. It lasts a similar amount of time. I just don't think it's as earthy, as kind of mature. I think it's easier to wear than Hawas Black. Both of them honestly aren't that easy to wear. They're definitely more fall and winter fragrances because they are so rich and powerful. I just slightly prefer that one over this release. Do I think it is worth the money? Kind of. It depends on the person. It depends what you like. For me, though, it is not worth the money. So if you think you and I have similar tastes and preferences when it comes to cologne, I wouldn't go for this one. I don't think I'm allowed to show this on camera, so I'm just going to show it quickly. Woohoo! It's a new one coming. It is a new one coming towards Christmas time. But we got a full review coming later, though. Trust me. Up next is Lattafa Nadjia Intense. This is the newest Lattafa fragrance release. And in case you guys don't know or haven't been bombarded with TikTok videos like I have, it is a clone of Jean-Paul Gaultier's Paradise Gardens. The first clone I've ever seen of it. And this one is taking off right now because genuinely, for around $35-40 US, at least in the opening, it is around 90 to 95% similar to Paradise Gardens. The main difference I noticed is that the coconut is kind of brought down in this and it's a more kind of minty, even fresher vibe. It's less dense and rich, which is what I like about Paradise Gardens. I also find this just generally on a whole smells more synthetic and less high quality. But again, for the price you're paying, it's a really solid dupe, and yes, I do think it's worth the money. For me, Paradise Gardens, I think the bottle, I think the juice color, I think the brand, it's just all too cool for me to want to buy a dupe of it. Like Jean-Paul Gaultier, I'll always pay the price tag because it's not ridiculously high, and I think you should do the same. But if you're really trying to ball on a budget, this new release, I do think overall is worth the money, and it is worth the TikTok hype. If you're wondering where I bought this from, I bought it from a relatively new fragrance discounter, I think, called perfumebox.com. It arrived in around 4 days when I was staying in New York at my aunt's apartment. It got there pretty quick. It's legit. It was 35 US. So if you're wondering where I bought it, that's where I got it. Personally though, I'm going to be sticking with and wearing my real bottle of Paradise Gardens because it's good, but it's not an amazing clone. While we are on the topic of Lattafa, we've got another Lattafa that is, although a little bit dying in hype, it is still up there. They're probably still selling hundreds of bottles a day, and that is of course the cult classic Lattafa Asad. The real reason I think this is so hyped is because Dior Sauvage Elixir for a designer fragrance is so incredibly, ridiculously expensive. Don't get me wrong, it's a high quality fragrance. You can tell it's a well blended fragrance with very high quality ingredients. It lasts a long time. It's a unique smell. It's just still crazy expensive. Like where I live in Australia, 250 Aussie for 60 ml. Like Dior, that's a little bit crazy. Lattafa Asad, on the other hand, around $30 US or around 70 Australian dollars, and you are getting a very similar scent profile. Similar deal with the other Lattafa that was cloning Paradise Gardens. You can tell it's just not quite there in terms of quality, but when the price tag is this low, you can't complain that much. Performance as well is still very strong with this one. About 8 to 9 hours longevity with moderate projection. Dior Sauvage Elixir is like 24 hours longevity with strong projection. But that's just, that's kind of unnecessary. The performance you get with this is good enough where I would be pretty surprised if you had any complaints. The scent profile of Sauvage Elixir and thus Lattafa Asad is just not for me though. I sold my real bottle of Sauvage Elixir about 2 years ago now, and I have no foreseeable plans to rebuy it in the future. That's why I got this, so I can still kind of talk about it and talk about the Sauvage Elixir DNA without actually having to spend the $250 of my own money on a fragrance that realistically I just don't really like. Overall, I do think this is worth the hype. It's a solid take on the Sauvage Elixir DNA for a very affordable price. If you enjoy the spicy barbershop, very traditional, masculine, almost licorice smelling fragrance that is Sauvage Elixir, there is a very high likelihood that you will enjoy Lattafa Asad, and I think for you, it is worth the pickup. Although I talk about it all the time and tell you guys how freaking insanely good this fragrance is, I can't leave it off this list because realistically, it could be the most hyped out of all 7 of these TikTok hype beasts. And that is, of course, Strong With You freaking Intensely. Christmas in a bottle. I'm going to keep saying it as we approach Christmas. Toffee, caramel, vanilla. It smells like a burnt, almost boozy, fluffy cupcake vibe. There's no, boozy notes listed in this like there is in Strong With You, absolutely. But Intensely as well gives off a boozy vibe. There's just something about it. I recently got, while I was in New York City, Stronger With You Tobacco, and man, this one really took me by surprise. It was a full blind buy, But genuinely, I have no regrets. It actually kind of reminds me of a more designer take on Tom Ford Tobacco Vanille. It's a very sexy fragrance. It smells like Strong With You Intensely, but you remove some of the sweetness, add some more maturity, and add almost a spice cabinet tobacco type of smell. Still mass appealing, but more unique than Intensely. But am I saying it's better than Intensely? I don't know. It might just be. It might just be. I do think Strong With You Intensely definitely does deserve the hype. It's mass appealing. It's a compliment getter. It's something everyone can love, and even something I think women can wear. Like, it's a very unisex fragrance in my opinion. It barely leads masculine. Strong With You Tobacco, much more masculine. Definitely a bit of a different take on the Strong With You DNA, but I'm really loving this one. I will keep you guys updated if Strong With You Intensely is still my favorite Strong With You from the line, because this one has a real chance of overtaking it. Do I ever think it'll get the same hype as Intensely? Definitely not, but from just a personal enjoyment level, this one is up there as well. This one isn't so much a particular fragrance, but it's actually a fragrance house or fragrance brand, whatever you want to call it, and that is the niche house of Mind Games. Mind Games are very well known for sending TikTok influencers free bottles of cologne, and I have fully embraced and accepted that. They sent me like 5 bottles, but genuinely, guys, I have not found one miss from their house yet. I would go as far to say that Mind Games is my favorite fragrance brand of all time at the moment. It surpassed MFK. It might have even surpassed Parfums de Marly, because they're just all very unique. They're hard to find boring, but they're still mass appealing. That's the trick. You don't want it to be so boring and mass appealing where you don't find personal enjoyment out of it, but you also don't want to be on the other end of the spectrum either. I think Mind Games really hits the sweet spot. Brands like Bond No. 9, I think, are a little bit too basic. Same as Parfums de Marly. And then there are obviously brands like Auto Parisi, Toscavat that are just too far in the other extreme. I think Mind Games hits the sweet spot perfectly, and the bottles look really cool too. They're like chess pieces, I think, but I don't really play chess, so I don't know. My 2 personal favorites from the brand, I'm holding them right now. My number 1 fragrance of all time, actually, is this one, Queening. It's a boozy coconut vanilla fragrance, but it is just so well blended that to me, it just smells like pure vanilla extract. Like, you know what those bakers use in their cakes and stuff, that pure raw vanilla smell? They have done it so beautifully here. And it doesn't lean too feminine either, which I really like. Mind Game's best-selling fragrance and the most hyped up on TikTok, though, is Blockade. And unfortunately, yes, it is a Creed Aventus kind of spin-off, but it's one of the onlyest Aventus spin-offs that I actually respect and enjoy, because it's a creamy coconut tropical take on Aventus. They've taken out the mature kind of masculine aspect of it and added some creamy fruitiness instead. I don't really get any kind of leathery harshness like the original Aventus or something like Club de Nuit Intense, man. This is... Sorry? I think my mum just called me. I don't know what my mum wants. Maybe she heard me talking about this fragrance, knew it smelled amazing, and now wants the bottle of it. This one is really good. All the Mind Game stuff deserve all the hype and more. I do wish the prices weren't so outrageous. They're around $450 USD. I swear to God, my mum is trying to get this bottle of Blockade off me right now. I swear. And finally, one of the biggest TikTok hype beasts of them all is this one here. Jean Paul Gaultier's Le Male Elixir. In fact, I had to get a backup bottle because my fragrance samples of this were selling so well. And if that doesn't show you the hype, I don't know what does. Because the fragrances that are selling the most in terms of samples are often the fragrances people are buying the most, and this stuff never leaves TikTok. You know, if you're on fragrance TikTok, you guys know there is something about Jean Paul Gaultier popping up on your feed every 5 swipes, and this fragrance perhaps pops up the most out of all of them. Very, very sweet honey, tobacco, lavender fragrance. Something about it though just does not work with my skin chemistry. It works great on my best friend. It's his signature scent, and then I put it on my skin and I'm like, this is not the same fragrance I just smelled on you 5 minutes ago. I do not think this is blind buy safe at all. A lot of people on TikTok call this thing blind buy safe if you like sweet winter vanilla fragrances. I like sweet vanilla fragrances, and I don't like this. I do not recommend blind buying it because it is so sweet. And the way the honey and the lavender kind of come together is not as smooth blended as something like Xerjoff Naxos. You know, performance is great. I think it pulls a ton of compliments. The scent trail is very intoxicating. Just be careful. Make sure this works with your skin chemistry before blind buying it. For a lot of people watching right now, this is worth the TikTok hype. But for me, it is not. So again, if you think you align more with my personal tastes and preferences, maybe give this one a second thought before just going out and blind buying it for Christmas. That is going to wrap it up on the 7 most hyped up TikTok fragrances right now, and whether they are actually worth the hype or not. I hope you guys loved the video. I hope this video helped you choose what fragrances you're going to ask for on your wish list this Christmas. Have a blessed rest of your day. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.